Ruth Maguire.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I congratulate the Education, Children and Young Persons Convener on securing this debate and the committee for being true to their word and keeping a sustained focus on the experiences of children and young people with additional support for learning needs. As a former member of the committee who was involved in this work, I'd like to thank the children, young people and their adults who shared their experiences with us. The committee was fortunate to hear directly from the inclusion ambassadors who were supported by Children in Scotland on how it feels when their school gets support right. I appreciated how openly and generously they spoke of their experience of being a pupil with additional support needs, including what works and what could be made better. It feels right to share what they said with the Chamber. They told committee that pupils feel really good when the support provided is correct and suits their needs. They let us know that it was hard to understand when somebody doesn't give them the support they need. They highlighted that it does not work well when there are not enough support staff to cope with the number of pupils who need support, which can lead to pupils feeling frustrated. And I think to the point that Willie Rennie made about support staff being moved around, when every time that happens, a young person is missing out as a support staff members moved elsewhere. So the committee met with young people, the inclusion ambassadors, as I said, parents, carers and teachers in informal participation sessions to ensure that we heard directly from those with personal experience and to really try and get a handle on the issues they were facing. The committee was extremely concerned by what we heard regarding the negative personal experiences of ASL provision, the implementation of the presumption of mainstreaming and the detrimental impact that this has had on some pupils with ASN, their parents and carers, teachers and support staff. It's important to say that the committee did recognise the excellent work being done by teachers and support staff, but we're really concerned to hear of the pressures that they faced. Pressures leaving them feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. The issue of resource was a frequent theme, not just in terms of numbers of staff and assistants to support children, but also in terms of flexibility to allow time for ongoing training and reflection on practice. Parents too also often described exhaustion with the fight that they faced in navigating systems to ensure that their children had the education that they were entitled to. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a gap between legislation and policy, which we have, which is excellent legislation and policy, and what children and young people are experiencing. The strength of feeling from this committee report should be really clear. When a cross-party committee report uses words such as intolerable, the government needs to take notice. If I may, I'll share an example of a bit of work from my own local authority area. I had the pleasure of helping facilitate discussions and actions between ASN Support Ayrshire, who are a parents group, and North Ayrshire Council. ASN Support Ayrshire had reached out to me. Parents were expressing their struggle to access support for their children, again, support they were entitled to. They really felt their opinions were not being valued, that they weren't being heard by schools and that communications were becoming really challenging. When I raised this with the local authority, they were very open to meeting and discussing things. And myself and a representative from ASN Support Ayrshire, the Executive Manager for Inclusion and Child Protection and the Principal Educational Psychologist had productive discussions. Training, parental engagement, communication, the E19 process, masking and areas of excellent practice were all spoken about. A suggested improvement to the E19 process was accepted around parents being able to see the report submitted to the inclusion group and ensuring that all parents were aware they could submit a statement and any additional information they felt was pertinent. The Council also shared their proposed new literature with ASN Support Network for their feedback. Monthly meetings and ongoing collaboration are planned. The committee report states that improvements can be made to current practice without incurring additional cost. I think what I've just described is quite a good example of that, and I'm very hopeful that these actions will make a difference to how parents are experiencing their journey with children through the education system. The committee report recognises where systems need to improve. It is as important to understand where things are working well as it is to know where there are challenges. The importance of this as we move forward is that where an implementation gap exists, where people are being failed despite good policy, despite perhaps world-leading legislation, more legislation, more structural change may not be what's required to make things better for people. And I think in this place we have to be vigilant that we're not just labelling whole systems as broken. In this and in previous committee inquiries, it's been clear that some of the best practice and results for children and young people were more about culture than about legislation. There is some learning in that for all of us, and for children and young people in Scotland. It's a lesson that we really need to learn very quickly. Presiding Officer.